Let's party.
Hello, welcome to Party Loaded. It is episode 212. We're talking all things great in the world of video games with these four fellas. My name is Luke Ritalik. We have Matt, the Game Dad Diet, on my right tonight. We have Christian Pulse Brown, somewhere in the groinal region, and Adrian Chia over where the fuck that is in the corners. And for anyone who's listening to the audio-only version of the show, you are missing out.
No, we're all just arranged in different corners of one room.
Absolutely.
I'm just crouched in one corner. Matt's on the ceiling.
Yeah.
I like the idea that Christian is on Luke's lap. Little region.
This little baby Yoda motherfucker that I got down here. Funny. I prefer to think of it as the four corners of the world when it comes to like different angles of looking at games, which is not really true because we have a lot of crossover interests, so we probably don't represent that well at all. So
Yeah.
maybe a little, not too bad.
It's like that political compass.
Is anything true?
Is anything real anymore? Yeah. I don't know. I tell you what is real, though. It is now... Hang on. I fucked up the count. I think it's 22 days to Doom Crossing.
Doom Crossing?
New Horizons? I don't know.
How many days until Doom Eternal comes out?
Oh, if Siri can answer that for you, I'll be well impressed.
23 days.
Holy
go.
shit.
There you go. That was Google Assistant, thank you.
Okay, cool.
But how many
Siri's
days
hotter
is it
cousin.
until Animal Crossing comes out?
Yeah, ask the same question and see if it is actually the same. I'm curious now.
How many days until Animal Crossing comes out?
Wonder whether you need to state New Horizons or
This
not.
time it says 23 days, but she didn't say it out loud.
She didn't say it out loud.
Oh.
She's just
She's
like
ashamed.
she's less hyped about Animal Crossing. She's like,
It's 'cause
here you go, you can.
she knows which game is
Yeah.
worth saying out loud.
It's the Drake meme in Google Assist's mode. Hilarious.
Yep.
I have to admit, like the ongoing sort of the internet memery of everything to do with those two games is just giving me life at the moment. It's fucking
It's so
great.
good.
Yeah,
good.
I really love it.
yeah.
It's the complete opposite of the Sonic movie and Birds of Prey movie
Oh, God.
Yeah.
thing. It's like polar opposite of that.
It is literally the polar opposite of that.
It's kind of like the poster example of why can't we all just get along, celebrate our
Yeah.
differences. It's amazingly positive in this world that we live in. Yeah.
I was thinking about Animal Crossing today, and I remember you guys saying that like you've played it at different times and you all like it.
I haven't. I've never played Animal
Okay.
Crossing. Yeah.
I've never really played an Animal Crossing game either. I think I've tried in the past, and I don't really like it. And I think I know why. And I think it's purely because of the animals, the type of animals.
Really?
When it's
'Cause
one
they're
half
all-
of the title, you probably got a problem.
I know. No, but like if they were all, like CH Pounder there. If they were all like bugs and lizards and frogs, I'd probably like it. Because they're all dogs and fluffy things.
Some
I kind
birds.
I kind of hate it, like for that reason.
There's
It's
a
just
turtle, Kappa.
Well, okay, one turtle, but like, are they all turtles? No, they're all animals that I want to kick, not animals I want to like play a game with.
But wouldn't you kick a turtle? They make the best skeets. They're awesome for
You'd
that.
hurt your foot.
Oh, yeah,
Also, I
sorry.
have empathy with turtles, but not with all those other animals. That are in
Yeah.
You have empathy?
Animal Crossing.
We're making
Move on.
new discoveries here tonight.
See, I think for me, it's just such a grind.
No, sorry,
it's
no,
such
Matt,
a grindy game.
I don't have
Grinding
empathy.
turtles
I
off
have,
turtle soup.
I don't have empathy. I have
Yes.
apathy. You pronounce
Oh,
it.
you definitely have that.
Yeah.
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 You think Animal Crossing's a grind though, Matt?
I do think it's a grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because there, I mean, obviously, a big part of it is having all this debt to Tom Nook that you need to pay off your house, but there's no like time limit. There's no interest on the loan, anything like that. So I kind of
Yeah, but you don't know. There might be in this new game.
maybe. Yeah.
I think because the fact that like the goal is so far off, and like you make so very little progress whenever you play it. It feels like a grind for me. Especially when you kind of like have to do that to get to the cool stuff, right? And to make a really nice kitted out house, you have to grind. But yeah, they're cool stuff.
When you think about it, though,
I like the game.
It's actually really good training for young gamers in a lot of ways, because there's a little bit of that life aspect of you have to work hard to get something that you want, and the whole repayment sort of stuff, which, you know, this Tom Nook pyramid scheme is probably good preparation in other areas. But yeah, like it's kind of that model of things that they need to expect from other things. Yeah.
It's like real life too, where every day there's one rock that if you hit it repeatedly with a shovel, money comes out of it. That's
how I learn.
You guys don't know about the money rock?
That's how I learned.
That's
Yeah. For me, it's not a rock; it's a live turtle. But you know, same thing. Yeah.
For me, it's not a rock; it's students.
Oh yeah, fair, totally fair. Anyway,
I don't think Animal Crossing is a grind, but I do like grinding animals. So
yeah,
to make animal cross breeding.
to make.
I was going to say, if there's one person here on this show that has no right to call Animal Crossing a grind relative to other things, but they're quite willing to fucking grind, it's you, Mr. Chair.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If Animal Crossing had shiny villages, you'd be all over that shit.
You can make the villagers fight each other with special attacks. Then maybe you'd have a game on your hands. But
I'd play that game.
I probably would too. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Anyway,
Animal Crossing Fight Club.
Speaking of games, let's talk some actual games that we played this week. So, Adrian, you want to kick us off tonight? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in a bit of a slump at the moment, so I'm mainly just street fightering more and more and more, getting incrementally better. I've hit a bit of a wall in my current rank at silver, where I can now confidently say that I'm a silver player because I'm spending more time there than in the top level of bronze. But I am struggling and sort of bouncing up and down between mid to the bottom of silver. So that takes up a lot of my gaming time, surprisingly. Like I'll sit down and play several hours a night of Street Fighter, which doesn't account for many matches because the matches are pretty infrequent when you get matched online.
Yeah.
But I did find time to play Undertale, and I finished Undertale, and I did the true pacifist ending. So I didn't know much about Undertale going in, but when Christian and I lived together, I did see him playing it, and I knew roughly the mechanics of the game. And you may have forgotten, Christian, but I saw the end boss when you fought the end boss.
Right.
So I kind of knew some of the twists that were probably going to come, and I knew sort of how the game progressed sort of minute by minute, but I didn't know what to expect in the greater scheme of the story. And having now played it and played through the game, I didn't like it. I'm not a big Undertale fan, I think. And I mean, I talked a little bit about this with Christian through the chat, and I just find it. I used the word pretentious when I described it to Christian, but it may not be the most accurate word because that denotes sort of arrogance. And I do think the game is earnest. I just think I think it's just too convoluted for the sake of being convoluted. But that's a taste thing, I think. I don't think it would be the same for everyone that plays it. So I totally get that some people love it and that it, was doing something new and fresh when it came out, and that was good. And I understand that. But I just found it quite a slog to get through. And I found the story just kind of like wanky and kind of eye-rollingly over the top. And like the fact that at the end of the game, it's kind of like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like at the end, it was probably why Christian likes it. At the end of the game, I had to Google for ages to figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
And I understand that some people like that. And I do on occasion, but in this case, I just didn't. I found that it was pretentious and overstuffed, so I didn't get much out of it. But I finished it, and I'll probably never play it again. So,
your thoughts very closely echo mine, Adrian. Very, very closely. Yeah. The thing with me though is I feel that there's individual parts of the game that on their own are really fucking cool. But as an overall package, it just didn't sync with me for a lot of the same reasons as you.
The thing I did like about the game is how it plays with
I've not finished it, to be clear.
No, it's nothing about the end. But I do like how it plays with expectations a bit.
Yeah.
Like how it gets meta. I do like the meta nature of it. I think it's just the story that I really don't like. Like I do like how it attempts to like break the mold by like messing with the way you interact with the game, like and changing your expectations so like you think something's going to happen and then it doesn't happen. And the humor's quite good, but yeah, I just find the story bleh.
I basically entirely agree as well. Like that's kind of where I ended out with it. Like I enjoyed parts of the story. I enjoyed characters in the story. Like characters are great in that game. But the narrative does, especially towards the end, it feels like it turns into a fan fiction.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the worst things about Undertale is the fandom.
Yeah.
The fandom is fucking bad. So
I have no experience with the fandom. I'm not plugged into the meme-ness of Undertale
It's
at all.
good that you're not, because you'll enjoy it more for that.
It's very Steven Universe fandom.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that people love about Undertale is the wholesomeness of it, like the kind of
I do like that,
and like sort of safety, and like the characters are all kind of flawed, and they have, I don't know, like they have their own anxieties and stuff, and people like that sort of coming together as like a little family vibe that the game has. But I agree that the actual plot isn't that interesting. Like I couldn't for the life of me actually recount the overall story of the game. And I think I gave it a Google search after I finished it to help understand it, but then never went any further than that. For me, it was really, like the originality of the game, the characters. I love the music of the game. I really love the music.
Yeah, there's one track in particular that is freaking awesome.
Megalovania?
I like that track a lot. Yep.
Yeah, and the memes that spawned from it, like that Megalovania in particular, there's like a whole series of memes. It's just like the first like couple of bars of that song that and then that's it, and like people just throw that in at like strange points in videos and stuff. But so I like the memedom of the game too.
I think what it boils down to for me is, I've mentioned this maybe to Christian before, but you know when you watch an anime and the nature of sort of the Japanese language and the culture sort of feeds into anime, in that anime is very like it takes a long time to get anywhere, and sort of plots can be convoluted and euphemistic, and like I think that's what I didn't like about Undertale, was how euphemistic it was. Like it never just tells you what it's trying to say. I didn't like that. I know that that's the appeal for some people.
Yeah.
But that's the main thing. When I was playing Undertale, I got the same feeling of frustration and impatience that I get when I watch anime, where I'm just just get to it, like stop fucking around kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I
thought. It's kind of like Nier as well, wasn't it, for you? A bit?
Yeah, Nier was the same. Yeah, like the gameplay of Nier, I had no problem with. But yeah, similar thing. The plot, like I'm just like just give it to me straight instead of making me work for it. But it's a bit different to like Dark Souls or Sekiro or something like that, which I do enjoy. Because it's not as like it's there. You just got to find it. But with those kinds of games, you have to like think long and hard about it to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Those games didn't reward the time spent more though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's purely a taste thing, is what it comes down to. Like I can't really word it any better.
Agree.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, Christian, what's your sort of week in gaming been looking like? Anything?
Not a lot. I played a touch more Street Fighter, and then the only thing other than that I've done is I've taken baby steps into not restarting, but getting back into Yakuza 0. So I started it like 2 years ago, according to my save file. And I think I got about 20, 30 hours into the game. And I was really enjoying it at the time. And then something else must have come out that just pulled my attention away. I just stopped playing it. And there's like 3 or 4 games that like sit on my shoulder bugging me that I haven't finished them. And that's always been one of them. And so I before Animal Crossing and Doom come out, I do want to finish Yakuza 0. But because it's so story-based, I jumped in 20 hours in and had no goddamn idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I had to go and watch like a YouTube video of like a story explanation, and then just try and stop it at the point where I'm up to and not go further. So I think I've kind of remembered now what is actually going on in the story. But I've only actually been like hands-on for like half an hour over the last week with the game. But
If you need
enough
to ask any questions, I can probably fill you in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even just like relearning the controls was a whole thing. I got into like a fight and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Oh yeah, heat actions and like I actually had to like go through the menus and like read all of the tutorial tips and everything for how to fight because I just completely forgotten.
Yeah, Yakuza Zero's combat system's a little bit more granular than some of the later ones as well. Like they really streamlined it. Like Yakuza Zero was the first of kind of the new generation of Yakuza games where they started to really polish the engine and do some new things. It's not using the Dragon engine that the latest games have had. But that engine they use for the remakes is still like a step above of what the PS3 era games were, I think.
Right.
But they really kind of polish it as they go along. But by the time they get to Yakuza 2, Kiwami 2, it's fucking tight. Like it's really you can see how they've worked on it. Yeah.
I remember with the combat system, I remember even when I played it before, it's like a system where there's multiple like combat styles you can choose from. But for both characters, I remember just picking one style and then just always using that. And just like with Majima, just always using the slugger style where he's got the baseball bat.
Yeah. That's actually one of the problems with this game. The fact that you got 2 characters and 3 styles each, that's 6 fighting styles to remember. That's
but I never found a need to change styles. I was just like, the slugger seems to do everything I need it to do, so I'm just going to stick with it.
You will. I can promise you will want to change styles, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly with Kiryu, like not so much with Majima, but yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for Christian, and only because you know me really well.
Yes.
This week when I was looking for games to play and settled on Undertale, I did click on Yakuza 0 because Luke gifted it to me for Christmas one year. So thank you, Luke. Should I play it? Would I like it, do you think?
Oh, God.
I actually think Adrian probably more so might.
I think you'd like it.
Yeah. For different reasons to Christian. Like Christian, I think responds better to the weird sort of, Japanese cultural appeal, perhaps. Whereas I think as a brawler, maybe Adrian, you'll find it a bit more enjoyable just through the fight mechanics and that kind of side of the game, perhaps.
I think it's the Japanese culture stuff that will appeal to Adrian lots too.
Yeah.
Should I play it later this year?
And also because it is in Japanese and you're now studying Japanese, that will be interesting too.
Okay. I think one of the most interesting things about it is the fact that it's a period piece as well because it's set in the 80s.
Yeah, this one, Yakuza 0 is set in the 80s, yeah.
Is it like GTA?
No, I would say not at all.
That's what's turned me off. When I look at it, I'm like, is this Grand Theft Auto?
No, hell no.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Because there's no shooting, there's no driving.
That's the stupid thing too. Like a lot of people who reviewed this game actually drew that comparison, and I thought, no, you clearly haven't played this fucking game. It is nothing like GTA.
The only it's kind of what would you really compare it to, other than like Shenmue? Because Shenmue is sort of the predecessor in a lot of ways.
I think it's its own thing. Really.
Yeah, it's really there's not a lot of other games quite like it.
Is it like a Uncharted Tomb Raider-y? Not without the exploration-y kind of thing.
No,
because it's
like Hitman.
You know what? I'd actually say it's more like a JRPG.
Oh, okay.
Because you have random battles. You walk through the streets and you come across a random battle. It's its own little thing. You defeat the enemies. You get XP. You move on. Okay. You've got quests like the side quests and the main quest. And
is it like Spider-Man?
Actually, maybe a little bit more like that. Maybe a little more like that. Yeah.
But I definitely think there's outside of like the turn. It's not turn-based at all. But I think you could draw some JRPG-ish comparisons in there too. But
sounds good.
A lot more character interactive and story heavy than like a Spider-Man, for sure.
Yeah. People like. Yeah, it's got like hours of cutscenes in it.
Yeah. And some of the boss fights are really cool. So and the cutscenes are great.
If Spider-Man was an RPG produced by Hideo Kojima.
No, because then you don't know what the fuck you're going to get. And I think
maybe The Witcher. Maybe The Witcher 2.
Yeah,
actually.
that's a good call. Actually,
2, before it, because it's not a huge open world. It's like a focused, like small area that you get to know really well.
Okay,
I'd say like The Witcher 2.
Yeah, I like The Witcher 2. In some ways, I like The Witcher 2 more than The Witcher 3. Okay,
that's set in Japan in the 80s. And you can go to telephone clubs and have phone sex with girls and collect their erotic phone cards.
And
That just
one of the
sounds like
fighting
Witcher.
one of the fighting styles is literally breakdancing. You just kick it.
Definitely
You can
just the
karaoke.
Witcher.
You can go to the dance floor. You can run the hostess club where they do little signals to you to like bring more ice or like more champagne and stuff.
Adrian, there's the selling point for you. It's got karaoke. So,
Yeah, it's got karaoke.
Yep.
It's good.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's got a ton of stuff in it. It's really cool. Yeah. So Yakuza 0, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Matt, you've been kicking in some more pillars, I take it?
Yeah. Much like these other guys, I also haven't had a lot of time this week. It's been like the start of the year has just been flat out busy. But I've made some good progress in it. I got to the point where I've kind of triggered the end of the story to start. And then rapidly I was like, okay, well, if it's kind of like the end of the story now, I can kind of figure out what I need to do and then start working on that.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I've triggered the end of the story to begin, but I probably still have like another 80 hours of gameplay in there before I ever get to it.
Jesus.
It's kind of insane. So like there's a couple of different factions in the game that you can choose to side with for the ending. And they all have their own faction quests. And you can do them and then decide not to side with them. So I want to still do that content because I'm a horrible completionist. And you can also go on your own. You can just basically like, there's a mechanic in the game that I didn't actually notice until I was just clicking around on the menu screen. There's a little hidden menu icon that when you click on it, it's got all of these. You know, well, actually, I was about to compare to Halo, and then you have never played it, Luke. So, like, I'm going to compare it for the purposes of listeners listening in. Halo, you have skulls, and you can actually turn on skulls when you go and start up the game that modify how the game plays. It turns out that Pillars of Eternity has that mechanic.
I do know about that. So yeah. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually stuff in there, like, and some of them are really cool. So like the plot line that you're following when you're playing the game, it always kind of struck me like it's this end of the world scenario, but there's no major rush to actually go and deal with that event. And then I accidentally clicked this icon, and it turns out that one of the modifiers that you can turn on is basically, if you don't deal with that, the game ends. It ends. That's it. You get bad ending. You didn't deal with the problem in time. And there's a whole bunch of really interesting modifiers in there that are for fresh new games, and it's a ridiculously long game. It's kind of insane.
So you can't turn it on partway through a run?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
You have to make a brand new run for it because you're basically making it around those events.
So it's like it's a handicap setting essentially.
It's basically a handicap setting. Yeah. Like the difficulty modifiers that change gameplay in interesting ways. The end of the first game, one of the things that you can do is you essentially. I was about to say you steal a child, which is basically what you do, but it's a bit more complicated than that.
But what do you do in the game, Matt?
I was going to say that's a great defense to use IRL. Like, I did steal the child, but it was a bit more complicated than that.
I didn't do it. So there's an event at the very end of the first game where basically there's a man that wants to sacrifice this child in order to become super powerful. And you as the player can go sacrifice the child, or you can go and take the child to protect it so he can never sacrifice it. Or you can just say, fuck you, and kill him, which is what I did. And so by
sacrificing one child, you can then save many children.
Yeah. Is there also a bad option, Matt?
That's the perfect joke.
But it turns out that if you had actually taken the child at the end of the last game, in the start of this one, they've actually grown up and are on the ship with you, and are basically like your adopted kid. And so one of the modifiers that you can activate is that they will always follow you around, and they can be attacked in combat, and if they die, it's game over.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of really neat modifiers.
You just carry around a big Achilles heel with you the whole time.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's a thing you have to protect.
That's a really cool modifier though. Like I'd like to see more games implement something like that.
Yeah.
Is it though?
But like, it's escort quests, and escort quests are like the worst.
Okay,
They're apparently.
Yeah, I was going to say not for the escort quest like part of it, but to put in this in context, like think about a game that this might be a bad example because I don't know the game well enough, but I'm going to use Sekiro as an example. So what about if you had a way to play Sekiro where you had like a particular weakness on your character that forced you to adopt a different manner of fighting in order to compensate for it, which changed up the way that you play the game? Do you not think that would be an interesting challenge or something like that?
That sounds to me like it's something that's better presented by the enemies you fight rather than
you as the
your
character.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like make the enemies change up how I fight. Don't give me like a condition that I need to get rid of or something like that. I don't know. But I'm sure there are great ways of doing that too, but
yeah.
it sounds risky.
Like the way that I would kind of see it is like it's a turn-based strategy game. So you're basically making you would have to kind of build the hero character in such a way that maybe they're ranged, and then that way you like, because you're standing back, your kid is also standing back, you're not entering into combat. As long as you keep your hero safe, the kid gets safe as well. It is really like one of those modifiers where it's like only the most hardcore Pillars of Eternity fans are going to turn that on and play through the game with that on there.
For a strategy game, I like the sound of that. It's like a Fire Emblem mission where it's like defeat all the enemies or get to this certain point on the map, or like your loss conditions are like if your hero dies or whatever. It's the what?
It's the Mandalorian.
It's the Mandalorian.
It's the Mandalorian.
100%. Yeah, good call.
That's true.
Just like the Mandalorian, you just got to murder the baby.
No. Just like the Mandalorian, you find that the child that you're actually escorting has powers of its own and just fucks everything up for you. So,
but yeah, the game's still going really well. I thought I completed all my companions' quests, but then it turns out that they're actually tied into the faction quests as well. So you can make decisions in the faction quests that will basically make a whole bunch of your companions go, wow, fuck you, and they'll just leave. Like, they just outright leave the party if you don't take their side. I'm still thoroughly enjoying the game. It's a horrible time sink because of the fact that it's like, I expected to be done with that ages ago, because by now, Pillars of Eternity 1, I had already finished, whereas I'm in this right now, and I need to complete the DLC content before I can complete the end game, because it's much like Pillars of Eternity 1, where I can't do that after the end events, after the final cutscene rolls. I'm done, basically.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of stuff still in the game to do, but having discovered those modifiers and everything like that, it's one of those games that I can see myself probably coming back to one day, probably after I go and play Divinity Original Sin 2 and finish it, because this has kind of inspired me to do that. So.
And probably after Baldur's Gate 3, potentially, as well.
Probably after that, and probably after Dragon Quest Builders, because that's on my agenda.
Oh, really? I kind of want to play that too. Yeah.
I played the demo.
One.
No, the most recent one. The one that just came out on PC.
Yeah.
I played the demo for it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I really want to play that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends who are really, really big on that game when it came out, so enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Minecraft with RPG mechanics. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what sounds bad about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Luke.
My week this week's been an interesting one. So it's been a kind of introspective week because I've started thinking about what I've been really getting enjoyment out of when it comes to video games this year. And like, obviously I played a lot of Destiny this year. It's been a big feature over the first couple of months. But I'm getting to a point with Destiny 2 now where like the things that I've been really gunning for, like the seals, those sort of achievements, which, take a lot of work and it's a lot of different tasks and sort of quests to complete. I'm kind of at the point where I can't progress a lot more on those because the things that I'm yet to do are either related to raids, which is a considerable time sink in short bursts. Like I actually need to find a time where I can sit down for a few hours at a time and get other people online and do stuff like that. Or it's things that are time gated. So there's things that I literally can't do at my own leisure. I have to wait until things unlock at different sort of cycles of like the weekly reset and that sort of thing. So I realized that that's actually a big part of what's been driving me. So I thought, well, what's something else I can do that's, a suitably worthy achievement type thing to gun for again. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the answer is probably platinum trophies. So the answer is probably going back to some PlayStation games and actually trying to finish them, and platinum them and explore that extra content. So, I looked at what I played last year and potentially not finished off, but was, could be a platinum contender. And perhaps stupidly, the first thing that I fired back up again was Red Dead Redemption 2. So, yeah, I know. I had a look at the list for that. Like, I first jumped into Red Dead Online just to see, what was new and what had been changed in that. And I sort of, had a good evening or two just sort of riding around and doing random stuff. And I've got to say, I actually still kind of enjoy just meandering in that game. It's fun. I don't want to do big chunks of it, though. But I think to pick it up again, like after a few... Well, I think it's been, when did that come out? Was it last year? No, the year before.
Year before,
Been a while. Like after a bit of a break, I was, really enjoying myself again. But then I looked at the trophy list and I was just like... Nope.
I remember when I finished it, I was like, could I get the platinum trophy? I remember looking at the list too, and there were only a couple on there that seemed like really difficult, but those just wrote out of the question.
It's not difficult. It's just there's a lot of time sink in there. Yeah. Ridiculous amounts of time sink. So, so I decided against that. So the other one that I picked up and started playing again, which I hadn't actually finished from last year, was Control. And I don't want to spend too long talking about it because, Christian, you've spoken about it quite a bit recently, but looking at the trophy list for that, I think it's absolutely achievable and I'm definitely going to go for it. So I played quite a bit of Control this week and it reminded me, like, why did I stop playing this game? Because I fucking love it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you didn't enjoy about the game, I know, and I actually am probably the polar opposite to you because I love the shit out of this game. I think it's absolutely amazing for my taste. And there's some of the... Like, I'll stand by what I said when we did our party favourites at the end of last year. Like, Jessie Faden, my favourite character last year, without peer. Like, she was just fantastic. But there is some really good dialogue with some of the other supporting cast in that game too. Like, particularly Artie, the janitor. So there's this weird janitor dude who sort of comes across as a foreigner in the game, and he's got some of the best written lines I've ever seen in a video game, like in terms of how weird and creepy they are, but still sort of fitting with his character. So if you play this game for any of the supporting cast, I would suggest just doing it for him in particular because he's great. And that was kind of most of my week. The only other thing I did was following on from chatting about Dreams last week. I did spend a little bit more time dream surfing and looking at stuff.
Did you make Gremlins?
I haven't yet. I've started tinkering around with the tools though, so I'm a few steps in. The tutorials in that game are really good, but they're really time consuming. So getting into the creation side of things, it's a lot, and I don't sort of feel in the mindset yet where I'm willing to sit down for hours and hours on end. Like, I'd rather learn a particular skill one night and then come back to it a few nights later and learn something new. But the way that it sort of stages out is good. Yeah.
If you make Gremlins, I'll give you a platinum trophy.
Actually, that's a really interesting point. I haven't actually looked at the trophy list for Dreams yet because I assume it has one. So
probably.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a requirement.
I wonder if they're all linked to just sort of tinkering with elements of the game. So I imagine it wouldn't be anything skill related, or unless it's vote related.
You'd hope
that would count you out, Luke.
You'd hope there's not ones that are like, have 100 people play your level, or like get your level, liked so many times, because that could be frustrating.
It could be, yeah. I'll have a look into it and actually report back on that. That's an interesting question. But I looked around at some of the other stuff on there as well, and there's a lot of sites now that are doing the best of Dreams compilations of things that they've found and looked at and that kind of stuff. So I've been looking around at that. The one that I did play just to check out, which I thought was actually really freaking good, was the Dreams remake of PT. I'm just going to play some footage now, but the person who worked on this has done an amazingly good job in terms of recreating the look and feel of that game, and I mean the feel in terms of like actually navigating through it as well. So it's not obviously like a perfect one-to-one comparison, but it's probably about as close as you're ever going to get.
Considering it's in a PlayStation
100%, yeah. And that's, I mean, you look at this sort of imagery on screen. If you didn't know this was a Made in Dreams version of PT, I think you could easily fool a lot of people into thinking it was the real thing. So
yeah,
it's just the blank picture frames give it away. But
yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing to say that couldn't be worked on further, because I think it absolutely could be. But it's impressive, like super impressive, the fact that people are going to the efforts of creating stuff like this, and it's just. I don't actually think you need to make full games every time in Dreams to kind of enjoy it for what it is. I think sometimes just doing like little sort of showcases or mini experiences is a really cool way to experience this content as well. And there's a lot of people working in that space. So what's that?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
The PT?
Does it scare you or just the PT?
No, just Dreams. I don't like it. I don't like its Stygian infinite nature.
Look, you're not wrong. It's pretty intimidating.
It's an eldritch game, and it shouldn't exist, and I don't like it.
It's a Pandora's box.
It's
Yeah,
super is.
Yeah.
I sort of listened to a really interesting conversation on it this week, which was talking about what if it was a pack-in for PS5, but not the creation tools, just the ability to dream surf and play other people's creations. I thought that was a really cool take on it. Sort of get people into sort of experiencing some of that content in that ecosystem, and then if they want to create their own, obviously they go and pay the full price version of the game. But I think
There's no VR support yet, but it's coming later. Is that right?
I believe so. It does use the PlayStation camera because you can actually use it to record audio, and it's got all the motion controls and stuff. You can use the wands to design as well. So the PlayStation Move wands. So it's got all of the building components in there. So yeah, but creating VR experiences, I think it'd be a really good application for that game. Yeah. So Dreams, it is absolutely, as you say, Adrian, like eldritch and infinite and sprawling and intimidating as fuck. So
it's like when you first learn that like the universe has like millions of galaxies and those galaxies have it's too big a scale for me to comprehend and deal with without going insane.
Yep. It's the No Man's Sky of games design in a console environment. It really is just so vast, ridiculously vast, but didn't have a shit launch, so maybe not.
No. It did what No Man's Sky should have done and had like a long early access beta alpha period.
Yep.
We've known about Dreams for so long now.
We have. I'm actually amazed that compared to what we actually saw early on, though, it's pretty much delivered on it. By all reports.
Sadly, it hasn't delivered much in sales-wise from what I've seen.
I think it's one of those weird fringe cases, though, where that was always going to be the case. Yeah.
I think
don't know what to do with it.
I would agree with that. I think that the problem that it really has is like Little Big Planet at least had like little caricatures that kind of like sold it. Whereas I think Dreams is just so vast that people don't really know what they're buying.
It's not only vast, but it's work. Like it's work to play that game. So like you're cutting out a lot of people who play games to play and not to work.
Yeah. I want to see some stats on who just plays via like Dream Surfing versus who actually creates stuff. I think that'd be very interesting to look at. Yeah.
I think it'll be a lot more people that are buying it just to Dream Surf.
Oh yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah. But
I'm interested but scared.
Yeah.
Look, it's a tough game to market. I credit to whoever has to make those decisions because I think that's not the easiest thing.
I really hope that basically like that game was made for Sony, so that Sony's basically like taking the cost, because if it's on that studio, I'm very worried about that studio.
Yeah. Media Molecule.
Potentially. Yeah. I don't know. Well, speaking of things to be worried about, let's jump into some news. Matt, would you like to kick us off tonight with the latest in terror in this industry?
Yeah. So everybody's dying.
Well, finally.
Yeah. A lot of people.
No. So the coronavirus. So Game Developers Conference is coming up in not too long. It's held in San Francisco. San Francisco's had no cases of coronavirus, but that hasn't stopped some very, very big game developers from just completely dropping the event. So EA, Sony, Facebook, and Kojima Productions have all dropped out from the Game Developers Conference, which are some very, very big names. And on top of that, the San Francisco mayor has actually said that he believes that the conference might need to be cancelled. Not just like GDC specifically, but like events held out of the convention center. I forget the name of the convention center there. But that convention center, San Diego.
What did you?
San Francisco. Yes, San Francisco's San Diego Convention Center. No.
Hey, knowing which sort of cities belong to which states, it's an easy mistake. A president could make it, So.
Yeah. I forget the name of the center, but either way.
It's like the Melbourne Convention Center here in Perth. You know what I mean?
Well, you joke, but there is a Brisbane hotel here, so I guess there's some.
Yeah. Validate.
But yeah, so like the GDC overall could be cancelled. I don't think that's likely, especially since there's no known cases in San Francisco right now. But the concern really is that you have all of these international travelers hitting up San Francisco. One of them could be infected, goes into a gigantic convention center with, I think, like year over year, GDC often has like 30,000 game developers all attending, and they're all from around the world. So they all get infected, then fly back home, and suddenly you've just caused a massive outbreak. So like, I can see the concern, and it totally makes sense why a whole bunch of companies are basically stepping out.
Yeah.
I know, like, I think it was EA and Sony, and I think Facebook as well.
Yeah,
also,
I think it was
out of PAX East.
Oculus specifically were putting some stuff on. Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook. Oculus is owned by Facebook.
Yeah, so be the Facebook gaming division specifically.
Yeah,
then,
yeah. Well, I mean, if they're not going, then any part of Facebook is not going. So, yeah.
But from the point of view of a company like Sony, like they're teeing up for a pretty big year in the industry, so I can understand their concern in playing it safe. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah,
it's really interesting because like at work at the moment we're feeling kind of the pinch of the coronavirus. We've got a whole bunch of Macs on order that were supposed to have arrived like before this trimester started, so like early this month they're supposed to have arrived, but because of the virus, like nothing's getting shipped.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be expecting them until like April. And it's potentially that's going to be even later. So what does that mean for like new consoles and everything as well that's meant to happen this year, since so many parts are manufactured in China? Like, yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting.
There's been some dropouts from PAX East as well, I saw. EA
and Sony, I believe. So
yeah, E3 maybe within the window where this starts being a big thing to them too.
Yeah,
and they certainly probably don't want any more hits at the moment. So yeah,
I mean, like
E3 June or July usually. June.
Usually June, I think.
June. Yeah, because when I was looking at doing GDC and then E3, it was within my 3-month window. So
yeah. But like I think that the production stuff, like how that's going to affect later in the year, like they're already talking about massive Switch shortages, sort of due to production impacts, and when we've got new Xboxes and new PlayStations on the way, is that going to like change the launch date window that they're looking at for everything? So
it's interesting for Nintendo, because Nintendo moved a lot of their manufacturing into Vietnam outside of China, but I think like enough components are still made in China that it's impacting them. But
not to mention the cost impact of those components potentially as well. Like if they need to pay a premium for certain things due to scarcity, then
it does make me wonder, like if this console generation is going to start out more expensive than expected, just because of the fact that scarcity is a thing. Or is everybody just basically going to be like, we're not releasing new consoles this year after all, despite that being the original plan?
Although, ironically, video games are the solution to this entire problem, because if everybody's home, are locked up in their houses playing games and not infecting each other, then we have a solution to the entire problem. So...
It's true.
Yeah.
Just make games free. Just
make games free.
Every company, just for the good of humanity, make all the games free.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Screw Medicare. Games.
Medicare for all, games for all. Run on that platform. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Oh, man. So the thing that I wanted to chat about a little bit tonight was that Xbox had actually come out this week and posted a bunch of details about their new sort of console generation. And I'm not gonna so much go into like all the specs and that kind of stuff. Like we're talking big numbers of teraflops. I think it's like 12 teraflops if you care about the floppiness of the new consoles. Yeah, exactly. You'll care about that. I think it worked out to about twice what the One X can currently do. So that's pretty impressive, I guess. I'm not so worried about the specs, but what I am sort of interested in is some of the other stuff that Xbox was talking about in regards to the capability of the new consoles. So the Series X is going to have backwards compatibility for games. We already know that. The interesting thing is that it's going to be backwards compatible for all generations, which I think is really cool. So original Xbox games, as well as 360 and an Xbox One are all going to be backwards playable on it, but also accessories. So, and that's pretty notable when it comes to Xbox, because one of the bigger sort of peripherals, well, a couple of the bigger peripherals they've had in the last cycle have been like the Pro Series controller, which is about half the cost of the console itself in some cases. So having that as like compatible with the new generation is a pretty good move, I think, because people would undoubtedly not be super happy about that, and they're really good controllers. So but also things like, do you remember the accessibility controller, the adaptive controller they made for people with disabilities and that kind of stuff? So That's also going to be compatible with the new Generation 2, which I think is very, very cool. So, and there's a lot of compatibility with audio devices. Like there's a Razer headset that they released not that long ago for the Xbox One, which is going to be compatible to those units too. So a lot of good moves there. Like a lot of the stuff that Microsoft are doing with their media around the next generation is very consumer friendly, which is a stark contrast to how they kicked off the last generation in relation to how Sony was approaching things. So it's really interesting. SSDs and ray tracing are a big feature of the new consoles as well. So, solid state drives enabling faster loading and that kind of stuff. That'll be very consistent with what PlayStation are doing by the sound of it. But the other couple of things that were really cool were they're going to have a new way that the Series X allows your TV or monitor to sort of use the correct display to get the most out of your console. And they're working closely with the manufacturers of those devices so that it's not going to be as hard as it was in the past, and you're not limited by sort of the nature of your display in terms of how many frames it can output and the resolution and that sort of stuff. It's going to be much more adaptive to the console. So
it's what Adrian and my superior PC monitors already do, the adaptive refresh rate.
Yeah.
So the two, like NVIDIA has G-Sync and AMD has FreeSync. So it's basically putting that into consoles. But yeah, both the console and the TV need to be compatible with each other to do that.
Yeah.
And I was in JB Hi-Fi like the other day, and I did notice on some of the TVs, one of the features was like G-Sync. I was like, oh, that's on TVs now. So yeah.
You got to throw those peasants a bone occasionally.
Yeah.
Nice. But the biggest feature, and this is the one that I wanted to sort of focus a bit of chat on tonight, was they're going to be launching this thing called Smart Delivery. And basically what it is it's a thing that supports this new philosophy they're sort of touting as like a cross-play and cross-buy philosophy. But specifically with cross-buy, like Smart Delivery is going to enable Microsoft to actually, like when you buy a game, Smart Delivery will enable the correct version of that game because you'll effectively own that game on any of the consoles that Microsoft sort of has available. But you'll be able to have the version of that game delivered to your console that is native to that console. So if you buy, say, Gears 5, you buy a copy of Gears 5 and you own a Xbox One, an Xbox One X, and an Xbox Series X, so like three different sort of steps in the sort of generational cycle. You'll be able to, with that one purchase, download the copy of that game that is native to each of those three consoles individually. So, which to me sounds really fucking cool. Like I think that's a super good move. And if cross-buy becomes pretty much the new standard moving forward. Like there's been a lot of discussion this generation about crossplay, and there's been some notable controversies when crossplay has been restricted or removed, particularly on Sony's side, like with the controversy around Minecraft and Fortnite, when and Rocket League, of course, when that was not available due to despite the fact that those developers or publishers sort of saying, hey, we'd love to have this, but Sony says no. But if this is kind of the new standard moving forward, and consumers will be really turned off when it's not available, as opposed to being surprised when it is. I think cross-buy could be the next step in that as well. So being able to buy a game and expecting as a default that you can play that game on any of your different systems.
It's kind of forwards compatibility, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's it's backwards and forwards compatibility, which is pretty cool. But we should note that they specifically have mentioned that they're going to support all first-party games, and third-party publishers are going to have the option to do it. And like Cyberpunk 2077 or CD Projekt have said that they're going to support the smart delivery, but it is up to the publishers. So there's no guarantee outside of the first party.
Yeah, you probably won't see indies doing it.
Yeah,
because making games on multiple platforms is a lot of work, and the main reason that Microsoft first parties can do that is because they have Microsoft money.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah.
The interesting implication I can see with it is looking at some of the biggest sellers of recent years, like the games that are sort of widely touted as having sold more copies than almost anything else. And I'm talking about like your Minecrafts and your GTAs in particular. One of the reasons why those numbers I feel are so massively inflated is because they've sold people multiple copies of that game across different consoles and platforms. So you think about like GTA 5 as a perfect example. I own 3 copies of that game because I bought it on Xbox 360, I bought it on PS4, and I bought it on PC. And Minecraft, I'm sure for a lot of people will be the same as well. So that ratchets up the amount of copies like tremendously. And I'm not saying those games aren't successful. They've obviously done gangbusters because they're really freaking popular and they're good games. But I think those numbers are still way bigger than they would otherwise be if you had this cross-buy philosophy at play. So, yeah.
But then why wouldn't they want... If people are buying multiple copies, that's more money for them, right? So
I think so, but I think they've kind of been forced into it by changing attitudes and consumer behavior. So
as a first party, I can agree. But like Matt says, like for an indie studio, if you put the effort into making another version of the game, you want to see some reward, monetary reward for that other version.
Yeah. If people love that game enough to pay like for it multiple times on an indie price scale, though, I think that's very different to playing like AAA prices again.
Yeah. I think as well, like my concern with that sort of system would be the fact that it would devalue the fact that it does take more work to put it on other consoles. So I kind of see or foresee a whole discussion about like why is this indie game on Xbox One a completely different price from the PC version? Why am I not getting both for free? Like that sort of thing would really kind of suck to see because it would take. Well, actually, Microsoft's in a weird place because of the fact that like you can just code a game for PC and then release it on Xbox and not really need to do a whole lot of extra work.
Yeah.
So Microsoft is kind of well set up for that ecosystem to exist. It's more that expectation maybe outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully. But
if Sony doesn't announce a cross-buy equivalent on their platform, though, this is a big selling point win for Microsoft, I think.
We've heard rumors that backwards and forwards compatibility is a thing with PlayStation 5.
But multiple copies of the same game?
Backwards compatibility is confirmed, but yeah, forwards compatibility has been rumored.
Yeah.
But that's, if it ends up being... I think that the number of use case for it being of great value to people isn't as huge as you might think. Most people will just buy the latest version of a game on the console that they've got, and very few people are going to like buy the older version of the games so that they can play it on the new thing,
Perhaps the knock-on effect will be that we see a much reduced appetite for things like remakes and remasters down the track.
Yeah, possible. Maybe. I'm just trying to think of like when would a situation like for me arise where it would benefit me, because I'm obviously backwards compatibility is in, so I don't need to worry about the games I've already got working on PS5. So a game comes out like Cyberpunk or something, I buy it for PS5. Sure, I've got a PS4 version as well. I don't. Why am I ever going to play that?
True.
There may be something. Maybe when like if they do like more half steps in generations, and there's like a maybe further down the track, I can see like if the PS 5.5 comes out or whatever, and I get like the enhanced version from our 5.5, maybe. But I think that it'll take time to see the real advantage of that.
Sony Smart Fridge. Cyberpunk 2077 is compatible with your Sony Smart Fridge. Perfect. There you go.
Nice.
Done.
You can finally drink a carton of milk while playing Cyberpunk.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nice. All right. And Christian, what do you got on the Platinum front?
Just more a quick update on the Platinum 4. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the Wonderful 101 Kickstarter and how it was the first of four upcoming announcements from Platinum Games. And they have just announced info on the second of the Platinum 4 in Famitsu magazine. And it is a project called Project GG. It's going to be directed by Hideki Kamiya, who is the Bayonetta and Wonderful 101 director. And what he said is that he's kind of tied Beautiful Joe, which is one of his other games, and the Wonderful 101 and this game into a trilogy that he loosely calls the Masked Trilogy, because they all represent different forms of Japanese like pop pop culture. So the first one, Beautiful Joe, he says he references Kamen Rider as like a Kamen Rider is basically like Sailor Moon for boys, if you want to put it that way.
Sailor Moon's not for boys.
I know. What? For simplicity's sake, you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And then Wonderful 101 is like Power Rangers, and then he's referenced like Ultraman, which is a giant red guy who fights like big monsters.
Yeah.
So Santa. Yeah.
Santa. Perfect.
Yeah, well, so he specifically calls it Huge Hero. So Project GG is a huge hero game.
Basically Voltron without the component parts.
Yeah, basically like it's probably be some hero who turns into a giant hero and fights big things, which sounds awesome to me. But yeah, I mean, like it's like the earliest days of the announcement. The other interesting thing about it is going to be the first fully owned IP of Platinum Games. So it's their first self-published, self-owned IP. They mentioned in the Famitsu column that Tencent actually offered to publish, but they declined and have chosen to self-publish. Tencent they are still funding some unknown Platinum title. It's known that Platinum has Tencent funding now, but it's clearly not
Tencent
for this
buy
game.
part of the company? It wasn't just funding, I thought.
Maybe, but not. It's certainly not a controlling share.
Okay.
I think they've invested quite a lot. But yeah, so we still got 2 more of the Platinum 4 to hear about. But no.
Transformers, another Transformers.
I didn't like that Transformers
Give it to me.
No.
Yeah,
I'll settle for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see them doing any licenses anytime soon.
Legend of Korra.
On that note,
so basically, it's the Platinum Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, missing a giant, massively globally successful MMO, Platinum do have some similarities to a company like Blizzard in some respects, I guess. So just much more story, single player focus.
In that they're both companies?
I mean, earlier on Blizzard, not Blizzard of now, sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, and they also say in the column that they're thinking of opening a second studio, because their main studio is in Osaka, and they want to open a 100-man studio in Tokyo as well.
Mm-hmm.
Diamond. Call it Diamond.
Maybe. Platinum, Diamond.
Yeah.
Mm. Tungsten.
I need tungsten to live.
Iridium.
20 years from now, we've got like Einsteinium.
Yep.
Einsteinium.
Unobtainium. Yep.
That's me. Just a quick Platinum Games update.
Yep. Nice. All right. Well, 2 to go. I mean, they're spacing it out reasonably well, I guess. It hasn't been too long since the last one. So, yeah. All right. Well, given some recent stuff that's been happening sort of in the industry around like obviously the release of the Sonic movie, and there was a news article sort of just after we wrapped up the show last week about apparently Gearbox tapping Eli Roth on the shoulder, potentially directing a Borderlands movie, which you didn't really get to talk about, but are we all universally sort of agreeing that's probably a bad idea?
Yep. I bet it's going to be shit if it ever happens.
Movie. It's called Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
Adrian.
And
what? No, it's good. What I'm saying is we already have Mad Max Fury Road. We don't need a Borderlands.
Yeah.
But to compare Borderlands to Mad Max Fury Road is an insult to Mad Max.
Unless in the way that you say that you never need to do a Borderlands movie because Fury Road is always going to be better than any shit they could put out. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's fair.
The Borderlands movie will be a Fury Road cut with slapstick sound effects.
Yes.
Could work. Yep. But anyway, Christian, over to you with our topic for tonight.
So we're talking video game movies, and specifically why they suck, and do they suck?
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody. I mean, let's
fix this shit.
Yeah. Do you guys? What do you think that the very first live action video game movie? What do you think it was? The very first.
I know this one.
Yeah.
Super Mario.
Luke's old.
Yeah. So the very
I saw that thing in cinemas, motherfuckers.
I saw it in cinemas too, right?
Yeah.
And I was fully into that Everybody Walk Your Dinosaur song, because that came out at the same time, and
everybody walk the dinosaur.
And because Yoshi is like a little weird dinosaur in it, and then apparently they only added that in like after in like post production because people were like, add Yoshi. But anyway, the point is that movie sucked ass, and that was the very first video game movie we ever got.
But at the time, we didn't know how much it sucked ass.
I think we like maybe even as a kid, I thought it was awful.
It was awful.
I thought it was confusing, but we didn't know any better, really.
Because I was just looking for stuff from the games, and there's one moment where they're sliding, and there's a bob-omb, and I was like, that's a bob-omb! But that's like the only thing in the movie that looks like it does from the games. But yeah, and ever since then, I mean, like the 90s were a pretty rough period for video game movies. You had like Street Fighter the movie, also famously terrible. Mortal Kombat was kind of so-so. And then it's... Yeah.
I was going to say Annihilation was terrible. Mortal Kombat, I think there's a fervent fan following for still, but I would argue that most of them probably remember the title theme track more fondly than the actual game. It's a meme following.
Yeah. It has a meme following. It has a cult following. Like no one watches it thinking it's like quality cinema. But what like I want your thoughts on like why were these movies so bad?
It's thinking of Super Mario, the first thing that comes to mind is that it just wasn't like the video game. So, I mean, obviously the main audience for a video game movie is people that have played that video game. Like, that's who they're trying. Now it's kind of easy to do because everyone plays video games. But you think of, like, when we went and saw Super Mario, you spent the whole time watching the Super Mario movie going, what is going on? Like, why do the Goombas look like big reptile men? Why this? Why is Bowser like a man? Why is Yoshi a dinosaur that looks weird? Like, you spend so much time distracted from the fact that it's not like the video game that it ruins it. So, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind for Super Mario Brothers. And then I think maybe if you look at other video game movies, trying to stick too much at the other end of the scale, trying to stick too much to the video game means that it doesn't, like, the story doesn't carry the movie. It's just
like Mortal Kombat maybe is on that side where the movie's literally just a Mortal Kombat tournament where people fight. That's basically it.
Yeah, and I think in my mind, the main reason video game movies fail is that they're not written as movies first. They're written like from an existing source material. So it's more like they're adapting something that already exists, not creating something artistic and new that has like merit on its own.
But then, I mean, it's very rare to get like brand new IPs in movies now. I mean, look at how many things are based on comics or books. I think video games had a particularly bad run, and I think that part of it is like a lack of respect for the medium in the early days. That's how I kind of see it. Is that,
I think it's also like comic book movies were shit for a really long time.
Yes.
And then they finally got their stride and everybody suddenly respected the medium a bit more because the movies were good. And I kind of expect that we'll eventually get to the same point with games. But I do think that the issue really is like you get filmmakers in a room, and I'm going to try not to rant about, like, I have to deal with film people a lot in the games industry here in Western Australia, and they're quite often really shitty opinions of games and the games industry.
Yeah, certain level of arrogance, let's say.
Yes, there is a very high level of arrogance. But like, because they have such a low opinion, right? Like, I can just imagine some director being handed, like a director or a producer being handed the Sonic movie. They don't give a shit about Sonic, right? They're like, okay, look, this is a paycheck. I'm not going to turn it down. I've got nothing else to do right now, so fuck it, let's go. And then looking at Sonic and going, yeah, no, people aren't gonna click with that really cartoony hedgehog. Like, we need to have humans in the movie, so we're gonna really like make the hedgehog like look realistic. Like that's what people will go for, right? Because they don't give a shit about Sonic. They don't give a shit about the IP. They want to make like what they think the movie needs to be, and then like overrule everybody else that says otherwise. And that's how you end out with horrendous cocaine addict Sonic. And then they have to fix the problem, right? And I was the reason I was actually looking at my phone for a little while now was because there was somebody that was quoted just recently about why they hadn't done a movie based on their game franchise, and they were talking about the fact that every single person that was like, yes, we want to make a movie about your game. When they gave them a script, there were humans all through the script, which the game didn't have. And it's like they had to tie it in with the real world somehow, rather than just making a game, or rather making a movie about the game that just exists on its own merits. And so they kept on turning them down. I'm pretty sure it was some Nintendo franchise, if I remember rightly. I can't find the quote.
Nintendo's famously been very skittish about going back and doing movies again.
Yeah,
which is
understandably so.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things where like you really just have to kind of give up control a bit. If you're the game maker, like you're handing it over to somebody that's just going to make the film, right? And so, yeah, I think there's a variety of reasons why, and a lack of respect is really kind of just it. Yeah.
Question from the audience there, Adrian?
Well, more a comment than a question, but I just thought of something as well. Is that I think another reason video game movies have tended to be bad is that up until video games were able to be more cinematic, story wasn't driving a lot of video games. It was the assets of the video games. It was like the character on the screen doing things. So Super Mario is not driven by the story. It's driven by the gameplay. So then to turn something that doesn't have a story into a story, it's like forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for a lot of video games, you play video games, you don't watch video games. So to turn something you play into something you watch is kind of unnatural, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like not only that, but like Mario doesn't exactly talk about his motivations, right? Like, really, if you're going to make a movie about Mario, you almost want to start out like, okay, it's going to be a silent film, and then we're just going to go over the top of it in post and just make him go wahoo, and then just call it a day, basically. Like, that's it. That's our fucking script.
Yeah.
Right?
But Sonic doesn't talk either.
No, he doesn't, and I wish he wouldn't.
Yeah.
But Sonic had a cartoon where he talked.
He's got several cartoons, I think.
Mario had a cartoon too.
Mario had a cartoon as well.
That's true. Yeah, Super Mario Super Show does not count.
But I think like a difference between the Sonic movie and the Mario Brothers movie is that, yes, like directors try and like force humans into like video game movies, but ultimately Sonic the Hedgehog did strike a balance. Like I quite like the Sonic movie, and I think that like it gave the movie has a heart, I think, and ultimately it's a story about loneliness and like especially childhood loneliness. And even you could even do a reading of it about like being an orphan or like abandoned, like being abandoned by your parents, something like that. And so I think that you can have a video game movie that has humans in it and doesn't just recreate the lackluster story from the game. It just needs to be treated with a certain level of respect and given a point to exist outside of just replicating what you see on the game.
Do you think it's really interesting that the Detective Pikachu movie was also kind of all about loneliness when you come to the heart of it?
Yeah. That is, and that's one of the questions I was going to ask is, because both Sonic the Hedgehog movie and Detective Pikachu, two of the best video game movies, the two best reviewed video game movies, and they're both kids movies. Do video games lend themselves more to being kids movies?
I don't think so.
In these two cases, I think yes, but in a way that you don't expect, because what they're actually doing is they're targeted towards the kids that we were, as opposed to kids now necessarily. Like, absolutely kids now. But the reason why they appeal to adults is because the adults are actually remembering what drew them into those sort of stories and those characters back at the time where they first discovered them. And I think that especially those themes of loneliness is something that at that time of our lives, like as kids, we would have all dealt with that at some point in some shape or form. And that's the connection for us. So in a way, there's a lot of other connections too, but I think that that's actually a quite clever one to draw.
It's like part of the reason why My Little Pony got popular, right, was the fact that it was appealing to adults in a way that like their experiences as adults. Like, you know, you're sitting there with your kids watching this thing, and it's talking to you as the parent, kind of sitting there watching it. And I think that's exactly what Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog have both done, right? We've had clever scripts where it's like, okay, the kids are going to enjoy watching Sonic run around on screen. They're going to enjoy Pikachu because he's cute. But the narrative we're going to kind of tell, and the core of it is something that adults are going to realize is about them, right? Because the kids aren't going to go, oh yes, this is a story about loneliness, which is about me, which is what I'm feeling right now in my childhood life, right? It's more the adults that are going to fucking notice that shit.
I hope no kid is sitting there saying that, because that kid should probably be kept an eye on.
It's true. Yeah.
But I think that those movies were smart in kind of how they appealed to adult audiences, and in much the same way that My Little Pony was smart by appealing it to adult audiences in a similar respect, like making jokes and having narratives that adults could relate to and children could enjoy is basically where we've kind of seen successful media like that take off. I think it's also why like Steven Universe is as popular as it is, because like I have a lot of friends that are my age that freaking love Steven Universe. It is not just a kids show because they can relate to a lot of the themes that it kind of talks about.
Yeah.
So
coming back to like a couple of the reasons why I think game movies are bad. I think that the reason, there's two main reasons I feel, and one of them has actually changed quite a bit over time. Like you kind of hit the nail on the head with Adrian when you were saying that back when video game movies sort of first started, like around the Super Mario era, where like there was a lot less people playing games and there was a lot less connection to the major segment of the public compared to what there is now. You very much did need to sort of consider the target audience of the video game movies back then being a much smaller segment that's a much sort of more educated fan base when it comes to that content. Whereas now, because games are a lot more mainstream, you can kind of like, you can have a broader appeal. Like you don't have to be as directly fan servicey maybe as you would have had to be back then. And you're right in terms of the amount of story content that exists now compared to the older sort of times as well. But the other reason I think it's actually difficult is because it's kind of like the opposite problem of comic book movies in a lot of ways, because the whole thing with comic books is that I think they actually benefit from having those stories told in a visual medium, like on the big screen, because you can go beyond what's on the page when it comes to like still drawn images and the amount of story that's captured in a typical comic book. Like you can transcend that to a certain extent, whereas and not in all cases, like there's definitely comic books which are much more fast, sprawling and spanning in terms of the story detail, and they have to be scaled back to be put into a movie, and I think we've seen examples of that which have been done well and not. But when it comes to video games, like particularly the story heavy ones that a lot of sort of adaptations have been attempted in recent years, where they've failed dismally because they've just tried to cram too much in, like in a short space of time. And there is no better example in recent years, I think, than the Warcraft movie. So I think, the Warcraft movie especially, because they're effectively trying to cram like the story from an initial trilogy of games with a lot of the themes and sort of, hallmarks of like a massively sprawling, online multiplayer game, like one of the world's most successful games really, into a single feature film that does enough fan service and covers enough of the story to actually make sense. And it was just a fucking convoluted mess because of how much they tried to stick in there. So, yeah. And I think it's the same with a lot of other things. I think that this is why maybe not in every case, like heavy story franchises should be adapted into movies, because sometimes they're just too big.
I think
I agree.
I think there's certain franchises like we almost got a Halo movie. We got a Halo miniseries instead. Yeah, Blomkamp was going to do it, and I think that would have actually ended out surprisingly well. I think that would have actually gone well if it hadn't actually broken down as a deal.
If they pick a segment, then
yeah, exactly. Like what they ended up doing was like, okay, so we're not going to base it on any of the miniseries that we got was good because the fact that it wasn't following any of the characters in the games, it was following like its own narrative.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it was good for that reason. But then it feels like there's just this weird fear about doing stories that are just about the game's universe.
Yeah.
Because then, like, the one that I have in mind at the moment that I am 100% certain is going to be garbage is the Monster Hunter movie that's coming up. because the fact that like that universe is rich with narrative. There's plenty of stuff to do there. You can do a story about a whole bunch of monster hunters getting together and hunting monsters and going after like the one big monster in this world that's harassing this landscape. But instead, it's about some American soldiers. They get dragged over into an alternate reality.
It's the real life link thing again, yeah.
Why? Like, why the fuck do they have to do that? I do not understand it.
I'm genuinely really surprised that the Sonic movie did not fail on that point alone.
Yeah, exactly. It's why I was turned off from the Sonic movie. But the fact that it's turned out as well as it has, like, I don't think Monster Hunter's going to have that same benefit.
I don't think it is either. And I think that gets back to the difference between going for like a mature audience and a kids movie. Like I think that it's easier to get away with having human characters and dragging in real world stuff in a kids movie. Yeah. But for a more mature story, there's more expectation that you would stick closer to the source material because you think that it's got its own value and it has artistic credit, so why not use it? Whereas Sonic, it's like, oh, okay, we don't need to just go like the movie's not going to be Sonic going through 4 consecutive worlds defeating Robotnik each time. We need something else going on. But Monster Hunter, there's enough going on really to make a movie. That's actually going to be the next video game movie that comes out. That's September this year. So not too long until we find out. And it's for anyone who doesn't know, it's starring Mila Jovovich from the Resident Evil movies. It's also because it's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who also directed the Resident Evil movies and who is Mila Jovovich's husband. So it's basically just a vehicle for them to make money together.
Despite the financial success of the Resident Evil movies, and I actually
most successful video game franchise.
Yeah, well, overall that doesn't surprise me given how many of them there were as well. I actually really did enjoy the first movie. I thought that was quite
the first one was alright. Yeah. But then it really just spun off into its own beast.
Yeah, and that's the biggest mistake I think they're going to make with Monster Hunter as well, because they're going to do that thing where like it's not like aligned to the source material in any meaningful way. They're trying to tell a sort of side story that doesn't behold them to that content, but it's also for that reason not going to be attractive to the initial sort of audience of fans either, because it's too different. So and I don't think
like nobody wants it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody wants that movie.
I think it's worth considering the fact that there are an infinite number of terrible movies that aren't video game movies. And then there are video game movies that just happen to be in that category. So, and like I think about what Matt said earlier about the level of commitment to video game movies, and I think like if you took like Paul Feig or Martin Scorsese or what's his name,
Spielberg,
Quentin Tarantino, whatever, Spielberg, and gave them a video game movie, it'd probably be really good. But like,
depending on the source material, maybe.
Well, tell me a video game movie that has had real talent attached to it, and then doesn't that reflect one of the major reasons why video game movies fail?
Warcraft was Duncan Jones who directed Moon, which is a fantastic movie.
In terms of the cast, though, that's probably a valid point. Like, I think probably Detective Pikachu was the closest we may have gotten. Because of a couple of the key actors, and obviously Ryan Reynolds voicing Detective Pikachu as well. Maybe
the art director being so like he was a fan artist in the community. In fact, like Sonic the Hedgehog also was fixed by a fan artist from the community. So like those sorts of things. Like there's people in there with real passion for the franchise. I think like I think you can have a good director, but if they don't give a shit about the source material, it's going to be garbage.
Yeah.
Like it just won't turn out good, right? Because I was going to say earlier, right? Like I think when you said, Adrian, the we've already gotten a Borderlands movie, right? You're not entirely wrong, because I think that's exactly what that director's going to do. They're going to look at the source material. They're going to go, okay, this is Mad Max, and they're just going to make Mad Max with some humor in it. Whereas I kind of imagine a situation, and this is dependent on how much they actually enjoyed the content, but Borderlands directed by Taika Waititi would be fucking great.
That actually would be really cool. Yeah.
I think that would be really enjoyable, because it wouldn't just be Mad Max, right? It'd be Borderlands.
That's Thor Ragnarok.
Basically, yeah.
basically.
I agree with you, Adrian, that if you take one of these really well-respected directors and gave them a video game franchise, they'd probably make a good movie. But I think what will happen is it's back to this problem of creative control. Well, they'll make a good movie, but it won't be that video. It won't feel like that video game anymore. Like the fans of that video game probably won't like it or appreciate it as a game representing their franchise. They'll create their own thing with it.
So then I guess that links back to like your original question. I was like, then why? Like, why do they fail? Is it just that video games? I think it's maybe that video games just work in their own medium, and they're just too hard to transfer over into a medium that doesn't suit them.
I think it just needs to add something. It needs to add something to the experience. Like in much the way that like creating a comic book movie takes a format that can benefit from being bigger and bolder and sort of more visually realized with, these new real world sort of technologies that can make things hyper realistic. They all benefit from that. When it comes to video games, it's got to be something that like, there's got to be a reason why it can benefit from that treatment instead of being crammed into something that's lesser than the original source. Detective Pikachu, great example. Like that's a very sort of finite, sort of contained story that benefits hugely for the first time bringing things like Pokemon that, for the most part, notwithstanding more recent generational games, which are still limited in their graphical nature, have been pretty basic in terms of the look and feel and the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. So bringing that to the big screen absolutely has massive benefit. I think that's probably one of the most perfect examples ever. But taking something like, a lot of people have talked about how cool it would be if there was like a Last of Us movie. And I completely disagree. I think that is an example where The Last of Us exists perfectly in the format that it's in. You're not going to add anything remarkable by changing that into a feature film. Like I really don't think
that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Like you play. The reason Last of Us is good is because you play it, not because you watch.
100%. I would argue the same thing for like God of War. If they ever tried to make a movie based on the new God of War, that's probably going to be the same thing too, because it'll never be as good as the game. Metal Gear is an interesting one because
they made a God of War movie. It's called Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah. Like Metal Gear is an interesting one. I think that maybe has some conversation around segments of it being adapted in some way, but again, like there's certain elements that you'll never capture the same magic.
And you mentioned Naughty Dog, and there's been a Uncharted movie stuck in development hell for a long time.
The thing that worries me the most about Uncharted, because I was going to bring this up, is that I think Uncharted could potentially succeed, because there's a lot of stories that you could sort of tell on a smaller scale. But
boring.
The one that they've chosen is the worst fucking angle for Uncharted ever, which is trying to tell like the young sort of Drake story that they touched on a little bit in Uncharted 4, Thief's End. And nobody wants to see that. You want to see Nathan Drake in his current age and form kicking ass and taking names and doing cool, national treasure type shit, like Indiana Jones in a different kind of format. That's what you want. You don't want the young version. Do you remember how there was like a movement for a young Indiana Jones movie that never succeeded? Because nobody fucking wanted to see that. They wanted to see Indy.
They had The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones as a TV show, and it was awful.
And who remembers that now? Yeah.
But I think an Uncharted movie would be terrible unless you make it like something completely like a genre movie that's completely not don't make Indiana Jones basically. Make like a psychological thriller or some weird shit like that you wouldn't expect to give it its own weird flavor.
Make it a South Korean movie.
Yeah,
make an Uncharted movie that's not about Nathan Drake. Like, have it exist in the same universe. Because, like, the problem with making an Uncharted movie that just follows the events of the first game, well, you've seen that. You've played the first game. It was massively cinematic already. You've just taken away the player's controller. Like, and the same goes for God of War and other movies like it, right? Like, if you can just experience that essentially already, and all you're doing is kind of like taking away player control, then yeah, it's going to be worse than the game because the game exists already.
I think the problem with Uncharted is that Uncharted movie and Uncharted as a movie already exists because it is a genre. It's not. Like every Uncharted exists as a movie in every adventure movie out there. Yeah. So because Uncharted is a game version of those movies, not the other way around.
Totally.
So, like, if you're going to turn it back, if you're going to turn it into a movie, I think reflecting on what you said, look, it has to do something different.
Yeah.
So it has to be quirkily humorous, like a Taika Waititi movie, or it needs to be a genre movie, like Christian said. It needs to do something different to succeed. If it's just an action adventure movie, it's already that.
Does anyone want to guess how many directors the Uncharted movie has had?
I'm pretty sure it's up to 6 now.
It's just gone up to 7.
Wow. Okay.
So there's been 7 directors attached to that project. So
Am I the next director?
maybe.
I'm going to fill it full of robot crabs and turtles.
You'll be fine, Adrian. Just shot Soccer Theory it. You'll fucking kill it, man.
Soccer Theory movie.
Yeah.
But like the whole idea that the movies need to bring something different from what the games bring is exactly what the comic book movies we've been seeing does, right? Like they're not just a one-to-one of the comic books. They have callbacks to the comic books. They retell some of the story from the comic books, but they are an entirely new piece of content that you can go and see and then be like, I've read this comic. It's not one-to-one, so I can still be surprised by it, right? And it can have those neat little callbacks. And I think that's really what game movies kind of need to do, right? Like be true to the source content, but don't be true to the source content's narrative. Like tell a new story in that world. And I think that people will thoroughly enjoy it because like if we got that Uncharted movie that didn't just follow one of the games, like if it was an adventure that we haven't experienced one of the games yet, and it was well directed and well acted, then that'd be a great game movie. Yeah.
One of the things I'm realizing,
the first game.
One of the things I'm realizing as time goes on, and you know, Marvel films in a few cases have been a really good example of this, and another thing which we'll get onto in a second. I think one of the most successful ways to not slavishly sort of be beholden to source material for something. And this could work quite well with some video games, is to actually tell multiple video game stories in one and weave them together in a way that actually makes sense contextually. But the problem with that with games is there's usually too much material to fit into a movie.
Wreck-It Ralph?
Well, Wreck-It Ralph's a weird case, so that's kind of like its own thing. But I think this is why there's a big argument for some games are much better as series adaptations instead of films. Because then you've got more time to actually tell those stories, and you don't have to do a one-to-one retelling. You can actually weave a couple of elements together and make it more appealing on a better sort of scale. And I think a really good recent example of that is The Witcher. So the new Witcher TV series is, again, a little different because it's based on the books that the game is based on, so there's this weird sort of cross-pollination going on there. But it's still essentially the same stories that you would recognise from the games, but it's multiple of those weaved together. And it makes a much, much better sort of final product, sort of having that sort of mix of them and still staying true to like chunks of the source content without having to be the exact same sort of formula of beat to beat to beat.
But let's not forget The Witcher is based off a book, not the video game.
Yeah.
It's close enough, I think, you know, in the elements that, you know, people who've played the games care about. So
yeah, but the game also based off the books. That's why. It's
probably a weird edge case in that respect. Yeah.
I kind of see it in between, right? Because yes, obviously it is based on the books, but I think the audience for The Witcher is there for the games.
Yeah.
So I think it got the hype that it got because of the games, and that's the kind of lens people watched it through. Even though, yes, it is based on the books.
Yeah. But the target audience is absolutely not just fans of the games, because we've seen the opposite happen where like a lot of mainstream people who've watched the series and gone, this is fucking rad, and they've gone out and played the games, or gotten the books. Yeah, they had to do like subsequent reprintings of the books because they got so popular again, and we saw the concurrent number of players playing Witcher 3 over the Christmas break was just astronomical. So
The Witcher is the crow feeding off the corpse of Game of Thrones, is what it is.
It is that too. I think it's a right place, right time thing too. Absolutely. Yeah.
That actually also kind of like, this isn't just in one direction, right? Like we've also seen movies be turned into horrible games, and like series be turned into horrible games. Like we're talking about Game of Thrones, and the Telltale Game of Thrones was so bad.
Oh yeah, that did the same mistake on the reverse side. Like it tried to create a side story that nobody gave a shit about from a movie to a game, from a book to a game. Yeah.
The reason that nobody gave a shit about it was because it was playing adjacent to the story that did matter.
Yeah.
So like your story didn't matter. Like no matter what you did, it was going to have the same outcome either way. Like you you were a house that didn't matter. Nothing would ever change.
And we've also seen terrible movies based on games turned into games with Street Fighter the movie, the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Full circle.
yeah.
It had Mortal Kombat style like live
Yeah.
motion capture.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's like when you take a photocopy of something and it looks terrible, so you put it back into the scanner and like print it out again, and the next copy looks even worse. So yeah,
I find it really weird that we've had a Mortal Kombat movie, multiple ones, haven't we? Yeah.
There's another one in development. There were two. There's one more in development.
yeah,
Exactly.
Filming in
It's been-
Australia.
It's filming here in Australia, but like Mortal Kombat, like there's a narrative there, but of all the games to make a movie about, like, is that really the one that we want to keep coming back to?
I wanted to make a point on that, which is I think one of the problems historically with video game movies is a lot of the projects that have been greenlit have been trying to target like a red-blooded male audience. So you saw a lot of like Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia,
the Doom movie,
Max Payne, Doom, Mortal Kombat, Far Cry.
Yeah.
Like there's been 2 Hitman movies. So a lot of these like very action-oriented movies, and I think they're some of the worst types of games to adapt.
Yeah.
Because I think that as the scene matures, we can hopefully move away from adapting those types of games into more interesting games that are better suited.
I think on that, I think like successful movies always reflect like the current zeitgeist, and so like the Marvel movies have done so well because they've kind of set the tone as to what is expected. And when I look back or think back about like video game movies, whenever one comes out, it always feels old. Like it always feels like a relic, even though it's new. Like it feels like something that's been done before, something we've seen before.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Something that isn't like pushing the boundaries of auteur. It's just kind of old and
How do you guys feel about the recent announcements of Blizzard getting into doing like a proper animated series for Overwatch and Diablo? Yeah.
I feel like shit, Luke.
Wow.
I think they're definitely much better suited to series, and both of those are also animated. I think one 3D, one 2D, and that's a whole other thing. Is like animated shows, and even animated movies. I have a different set of problems, and also there are a lot of fewer hurdles. Like budget, obviously, isn't as much of an issue as far as effects go. Actors, I mean, you obviously have talented voice actors, but you're not having to pay A-list celebrities to do that. And
some of them do. I can think of probably the most successful example to date has really gone hard on the voice talent, and like massively successful as a result of that and other decisions they've made.
I mean, it's not that it's not valued, but it's not necessary. Like if you look at like the like Angry Birds movie, that didn't succeed because of the names attached to it. That succeeded because it was Angry Birds.
Yeah, that's entirely right.
I think like the problem that I have with the Overwatch and Diablo content is the fact that it's going to keep on getting compared to what Blizzard did in cutscenes.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And so if they don't match that level of quality, they're not going to be particularly well received, I think. Not unless they deviate in some way that's really unique and doesn't try to like echo that pre-existing style.
I think Doom will, not Doom, Diablo will. I think Overwatch will try and mimic the Pixar style, but I think Diablo will go its own way.
I can't remember who said this to me recently. It might have been one of you, discussing ways they could approach like the Overwatch animated material. One take that was mentioned to me is they could do like a Love, Sex and Robots style take on
Love, Death, Robots.
Love, Death and Robots, almost like the Animatrix, where it's like different sort of shorts that are done in a different storytelling and animated style. So
I actually completely disagree with that personally.
Okay.
Because I think one of the problems people have had with Overwatch story so far is that it has been this disconnected series of cutscenes, and it hasn't gelled into like a long, solid narrative. I think what people are craving is a drawn out and well done narrative story.
I think
I agree.
The problem I would have with that is that everybody would want to see their character in that.
Yeah,
And it's going to have to
pick a
focus on,
core for
Yeah,
have
well,
some-
they kind of have done that in a way because you know who the core Overwatch team members are. Like, you know, and then you've got all of the other surrounding characters that are sort of, you know, associated with, or you've got the Talon bad guys and that sort of stuff in the background. So that kind of exists already. So
Yeah, when you play Overwatch and when you get into Overwatch and watch the content, you know that like Tracer, Winston, Torbjorn, Mercy, Reinhardt is basically Overwatch. Like Soldier.
Yeah, you're not going to have
That's
probably Farah in there or Sombra
Yeah, exactly.
maybe.
Yeah,
But they
like-
want some representation. So
100%.
But on the plus side, like Overwatch doesn't have a story, so it's not exactly like they're going to have the issue of, you know, retelling something that's already been told, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, I don't know.
So I think we should get around to like closing thoughts on video game movies, and I just want to say I think that it is inevitable that mature video game movies will become good. I think that kids movies are already there, and I think that as gamers grow up and become movie directors, I think that as the next generation of movie directors are going to have played games as a kid, and so they're going to have more, I think, respect for the medium in that way. And I think as special effects become even better than they are now, or more affordable, it opens up more doors to more like worlds. And I think as it's seen that they can be good movies, I think there'll just be an incentive to make better video game movies over time.
Yeah.
You know what was good? It was Tron Legacy.
I watched that like 3 weeks ago. That's a great
Tron
movie.
Legacy's a great
Yeah, but then Tron was a game. It's like a fake game which had a real game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, it's
it was
a
a
movie.
movie before it was a game.
Yeah, it's a movie based on a fake game which became a real game, which became a sequel.
Yeah, that's
but-
true. That's true.
Yeah, that's some gameception crap there. It's weird. Well,
Adrian, did you know there's a not technically cancelled Mega Man game by Capcom?
Not
It's-
cancelled Mega Man game.
Movie, sorry. Yeah, I'm
Right.
getting sweaty. As late as 2018, they've confirmed that the movie's still in development. So
It'll probably be based off that horrible recent series they did.
oh,
live
yeah.
action.
I saw that.
Oh, live action.
Yeah,
Who would play Mega Man? Who would be?
I think Mega Man would be CG.
Oh, Mega Man was
But if it was a real actor, who would it be?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, yes, it would be.
Tom Holland is the new hot man.
I was going to go
Rest in
totally
peace.
different direction, and now that we know he's actually returning to being an actor again with the new Shrunk movie coming out soon, I'd say Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis as
Moranis is Mega Man.
Amazing. Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
No, like Danny DeVito as Mega Man would be.
I would watch that.
I don't know. I could see him doing one of the robot
Absorb your
enemies.
power.
I started blasting.
DeVito could definitely do Wily.
Blasted.
No, look. Honestly, if no more video game to movie adaptations come out and just really good
Wild.
series do, like, and especially like if the Diablo series never happens and we just get more of this, like more things of the caliber of like Castlevania, I would be all down for that. Like, give me that kind of storytelling that actually has room to breathe. That is 100% my desire. So, yeah.
So just what you're saying is just make anime. Anime is the superior.
Doesn't
intellectual
always have to be
art
anime,
form.
but in this case, yeah, I will concede that this is the best.
Christian with his big brain.
The anime brain.
Yeah. I've just got that on the brain because the new Series 3 of Castlevania is like a week or two away, so
Yeah, that's true.
fuck yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
My closing thoughts is that if anybody wants to make a movie about artificial intelligence and recapture interfaces, call me.
Nice. Yep.
My closing thoughts are: who gives a shit? What it is yeah, who gives a shit? If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. If it happens to be about a video game, then that's nice.
Yep.
At the moment, I'm into like slow, tense, like horror thriller movies.
So, a Fallout 76 movie then.
Oh god, that would
PT movie.
I feel
if I wanted to watch Fallout 76 a movie, I'd just get drunk and walk into a movie theater and fight whoever was sitting in the theater and have the same experience as playing Fallout 76.
you wait. The Fallout 76 rights will get picked up by like Uwe Boll or something like that, and it'll just be
Terrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
But that's exactly like it fits the source material, so it's not technically a bad movie.
Sure. Yeah. Everybody who attends gets a bucket of popcorn with cancer mold in it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Hey, Christian, you never actually said, did you enjoy the Sonic movie? Do you think it was good? Like,
I thought it was great.
You said that.
Yeah.
I thought, it was really good.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely going to get a sequel, and I look forward to where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Because Sonic, spoiler alert, doesn't die.
Danny DeVito should have been Dr. Robotnik.
That'd have been all right.
What,
Perfect Dr.
was
Robotnik.
Carey a good fit for it, though? Like, I get the impression
I think he
afterwards
was perfect, but like, because leaving the cinema, I was thinking like, growing up, there were certain superstars that every time one of their movies came out, it was a huge deal. I was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and like Jim Carrey were like huge. It's like it's a new Arnie movie or it's a new Jim Carrey movie, and I feel like it's Jim Carrey back to his form. Like it's not. What's that? Dr. Popper's Penguins, or whatever that shit was, or like
Mr. Popper's Penguins.
It's not that. It's not series of unfortunate events. It's him being like basically Ace Ventura or Cable Guy or Dumb and Dumber, and I miss that, and it's good.
He's had a really successful series recently where he's been like a super sort of depressed dude as well. So he's showing some pretty remarkable range at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
Shame he's terrible.
Right.
He's not so bad.
Yeah. Bad roles. It's like it's a bit of the Nicolas Cage kind of argument. Is he a good actor in terrible movies or a terrible actor in anyway. Yeah.
It just occurred to me we never talked about the Jumanji movie, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a Tron deal. where
It
it's
is
like-
kind of a Tron deal, yeah.
That being said, the latest two are apparently really watchable. So yeah, I'm
Are
kind
there only two?
of the new ones with the Rock and
There's three.
Are there three? I thought there were only two.
There's the original and two new.
Oh,
new
the
makes.
original, right,
yeah,
right.
and then you've got Zathura if you count that. But anyway, we're getting into the weeds
with
here. Yeah,
space shit.
Anything is watchable if you keep your eyes open, so.
it's true. It's true.
What about the sun, Matt?
Yeah.
The sun is watchable if you keep your eyes open.
Only
You'll
for a
develop
second.
blindness.
So hopefully all of our listeners tonight have found us watchable or listenable at the very least if you're catching us on the podcast feeds. But yeah, that's a show. So thank you very much for listening. As usual, all comments and feedback, send them into the usual spots. So mail at partyloaded.com, at Party Loaded Show on Twitter, and check us out on Facebook. Just search for Party Loaded, and everything available via the hub at channelendgame.com as per usual. If you haven't caught the show live, make sure that you check it out at some point in future if you're available. We always stream at 8 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time on twitch.tv/partyloaded. Yeah, it's a good fun time to hang out and chat in the channel while we all goof around and chat games. So just try and do that if you can. So yeah, cool. All right, well we're running long, so I won't sort of indulge in the what's up this week chat, but let's get some gaming in. I'm going to chase down some trophies and hopefully have some fun stuff to chat about next week. So, closing thoughts, remarks. No.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Nice. Good show. Thanks everyone.
Hey, gang.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.